Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm reluctant to start with half our members gone, but under the rules, according to the rules here, we got a quorum. We got 4 members. And for the benefit of our visitors, esteemed people from across the street, I might just introduce each one. Introduce you and tell a little bit about your background, if you're in the military or had any connection with the military, or what you want to say. Let's just start over here at the end.
Hello, my name is Brian Thomas, State Representative from District 100, which is a little piece of that big county, Gwinnett. Served in the U.S. Army as an officer for 4 years, military intelligence, then was in the reserves for a number of years and left the reserves as a major, and happy to be here and looking after veteran issues.
Thank you.
My name is Tony Sellier. I'm never served in the military. Always been extremely proud of what the military does, and I've lived in a great country that is great only because we were willing to fight for what we believe in. I represent District 136. Robins Air Force Base is right next to us. We've got about 15% of our employees, of our residents that are employees at Robins Air Force Base. I've been on Military Affairs Committee for 15 years down there, supporting the military and supporting veterans. And so I have a great interest in the military and the veterans. Thank you.
Thank you. He's secretary of our committee. And next is Representative Melvin Everson, who is vice chairman of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Melvin Everson, State Rep from Snellville, Georgia. Portions of Logan, Grayson, Lawrenceville, and Loganville. 23-year retiree from the military. Father was a World War II veteran. Older brother served in Vietnam. I have a niece that's currently serving in Afghanistan, and I had a nephew that was in the last episode of Iraq. Very much concerned about the veteran affairs and our defense of this nation, and whatever I can do to make that better and to make our nation stronger, I stand ready to do that. Thank you so much. I served overseas as well in theater of Europe, in Germany, Southern Bavaria. Last assignment was 82nd Detachment, 82nd Airborne, Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Thank you. I'm John Yates. I represent District 73 in the House. Basically, it's Fayette, Spalding, and Henry County. I live in Spalding. I was in World War II. In fact, this is the last one left in the legislature, World War II service. I flew a Piper Cub at the front lines and directed artillery on the Nazis. Flew across the English Channel, D+30, and went the rest of the way across Europe. And our tour of duty was whenever the war was over, or you got the Congressional Medal of Honor, or you got killed. But my most famous story, I guess, was at Battle of the Bulge, and our job was to break in and relieve the 101st Airborne, which had done a great job being surrounded. And there's a German tank there, been sitting there about 3 days, and it wouldn't move, and we couldn't shoot artillery. It was too close to the front line, so me and my observer dropped a can of gasoline on him, and he moved. And he backed up, and then we adjusted artillery on him, knocked his track off. 2 days later, was in Bastogne. I didn't get the medals for that because I forgot to take my PR department with me. But it's a pleasure being here, and it's a pleasure to represent this committee. And we have done some good things in the past, and I'll tell you, I got a letter from the present division commander of the 3rd Division thanking us for all the things that we had done in this committee for soldiers and their wives and veterans, and invited me down to Fort Stewart, and I invited him up to the legislature, so I plan to see him whenever I can. And he called it the 3rd Division, the Georgia Division. He kept referring because they in Fort Benning and Fort Stewart. And I remember the 3rd Division from World War II days. They did quite a bit, but they really refer to themselves, World War I, they call themselves, you remember, the Rock of the Marne. They stood fast at the Marne River in World War I. We're very famous for that. At this time, I want to tell you how happy I am to have my good friend, Commissioner Pete Wheeler. He and I guess, share one thing in common. We go back to World War II, and he's done a great job for veterans, and I pride myself in saying that I think that I have worked closely with him and supported him on a lot of things, and he's supported me, and it's all done for the benefit of veterans, soldiers, and their spouses, and so it's just real tickled to be here. And I want any particular new members that haven't worked with him on Veterans Affairs possibly, and I've done a lot of that, and I've taken veterans to hearings, and his man is there to support it. And I was there as an expert witness one time and got the man's what he was deserved, because I was able to be an expert witness. Two things. This man his ears were hurt by artillery, and since I was in the artillery, I could speak to that and know that the Army didn't give us earplugs. And the other thing, that they didn't make a note of when he went to the medical station, and I remember that from World War II, that they didn't always have time to make proper notes in the records, and sometimes an expert witness can help on something like that. So I just give you my background on that I've worked closely on that since I've been on this committee. And so, Commissioner, we just turn it over to you and your folks, if you want to introduce your folks, so that these people, anytime they want to go across the street or call y'all, they can work on that.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me all right? Good.
Yes, sir.
I first want to tell you how much you mean to us, those of us who are working in Veterans Affairs. We appreciate everything that you and the members of this committee have done to make sure that the veterans of Georgia receive what they are entitled to. The first thing I'd like to say is that no veterans benefit is automatic. They have to be applied for, and in order to apply for them, you got to know about it. And our job is to let them know what they're entitled to, and Georgia can prove that we are doing more for our veterans than some states that have more veterans than we do. For example, we have 765,000 veterans. In Illinois, there are 841,000. Michigan, there are 761,000. In Virginia, there are 807,000. But when you look at the figures here, we are bringing in compensation and pension benefits of $1,227,580 in compensation and pension benefits, where Michigan, for example, that has more veterans than we have, is bringing in 779,000. Illinois, 739,000, although they have over 100,000 veterans more than we do. And it's because you have allowed us to have offices all over the state of Georgia that go into every county on attendant service from basic cities, and let these veterans know what they're entitled to, and then assist them in getting the benefits that they are entitled to. In Georgia, we also operate the State Approval Agency, which approves all schools and universities which train veterans in any way, even including the University of Georgia, has to be approved by Mr. Bill Young and his staff, the State Approval Agency. That is done with all federal funds, and no state funds are used in connection with our State Approval Agency. We also operate 2 cemeteries. We built them, and the federal government paid us after we built them. We got one in Milledgeville, Georgia, in the center of the state, and we have one down in Glenville. And I wish you would pull your packet there and pull that out and look at it. The inside of the chapel of the cemetery in both places are duplicates. They brought in a stained glass window that was square, and we said, no, we want it pointing up. And you'll see that it's pointing up, showing you the direction you ought to be headed in. And without telling you, that brings it to your mind. It's cooler up there than it is down below, so we're told. And we operate 2 cemeteries. We operate nursing homes for veterans. in Augusta and in Milledgeville. And the finest nursing home in the entire world is operated by the Medical College of Georgia for us. And we have field offices located throughout the state. And we also interested in other things. We always try to have at least 2 or 3 projects that we're working on too. We're very interested in the federal government putting a commissary and PX at the Dobbins Air Force Base because we want it there when Fort Gillem and Fort McPherson close. And we also, those of you who live over toward Alabama side of Georgia, we want to build another hospital. We're not asking the state to participate in this at all, but we're encouraging the right people at the right place who we know to build out at Fort McPherson. The VA owns about 8 buildings, will receive about 8 of those buildings once that base is closed. And we want to build include a small hospital out there to relieve the overcrowding of the Atlanta VA hospital, which is on the other side of Atlanta, and where there's no parking much or anything else. We can use part of the golf course if we have to for parking out at Fort Mac. Also, we are pushing to complete a bridge, air conditioned, don't cost the state anything. This is all federal money, VA money. A bridge between the VA Medical Center and the VA Regional Office. And that is underway now. And there are other things that we are always interested in that we'll mention later. But I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the members of this committee for everything that you do to make sure that the Georgia veteran gets everything he's entitled to, and we are going to make sure that they do as long as we have the staff necessary to do it. And if we don't have the staff to do it, we still are going to try to do it. And I'd like to ask Mr. Tom Cook, our Assistant Commissioner for Administration. He has some slides he'd like to show you, and we're available to answer any questions. I'd like to introduce you to the man that I couldn't get along without, Mr. Lynn Glass, the Assistant Commissioner for Administration. And then for claims, Mr. George Langford, who's been with the state many years, is in charge of our claims staff. Once they receive the necessary papers from the field offices, Mr. Langford and his staff see that they get to the proper place and give the proper answer to the right questions. And I believe that's all we have. Come on up, Tom, if you would, and give it the rest of the story.
Mr. Commissioner, I heard a story about that. The man was always going to put his money upstairs and take it with him when he went through, and after he passed on, they asked the wife, said, did John take his money with him? Said he didn't go in that direction.
Thank you, Commissioner Wheeler. And Mr. Chairman, it is a pleasure to be before you and your committee today. As I understand it, you wanted a briefing on what it is that we do, what our department is about, and it's my pleasure to go through the briefing at this time. You have a copy of all of the slides that we're going to go through, as well as some other material. And we brought the gentlemen along that are in the other areas of responsibility in case we have other questions as we go along.
Let me just stop a minute and let one of our members, Representative Mike Blanton, who will tell you about his Army time and other things.
Okay,
that he might
sure.
want to.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening to the members of the committee as well as to our audience. My name is, as he says, Mike Blanton, and I'm retired military, Army. I spent most of my career overseas, probably about 13 years of it. Places like Germany and Hawaii and Iraq, Iran, Jordan, Egypt, just a little bit of everywhere. And actually had an opportunity to Gulf War I. as well as Just Cause, and also Operation Hawkeye, which was Hurricane Hugo down in the Virgin Islands, and so on and so forth. So it was a pleasure to serve on this committee last term, and I look forward to continuing to work with you this term. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir, and appreciate your service and the service of all of you. And most of our department have our veterans, and many of us retired military too. Not everyone in the department, but a big percentage of us are, for sure. Our Veteran Service Board, of course, heads up the department, 7 members serving 7-year terms that are staggered. And, of course, every 4 years elect a commissioner. And we've been very fortunate to have our commissioner reappointed throughout the years for the one and only and one of a kind. Very, very blessed to have that kind of leadership. And the commissioner didn't say it, but I want to say that that also has to do with a lot of other states, that as the new administration comes in and they have a change in the leadership, that there's no continuity, and that interferes, I think, with a lot of states' ability to really have the kind of leadership that we have in the state of Georgia because of Commissioner Wheeler and his leadership throughout the years. I'll skip through the wiring diagram there, but we have the mission. Our mission is built on the VEA's mission, which is dates back to Abraham Lincoln's push in terms of taking care of those who have borne the battle and their widows and their orphans. Our mission is to serve those who have served, and currently there are over 765,000 veterans based on the FY07 VA data residing in Georgia. Of course, their dependents and survivors, and all federal and state benefits. And as the Commissioner said, you have to apply for it to get it. That's why we're here, to take care and make sure that those folks that are entitled do apply and know how to apply. We accomplish our mission through these 3 divisions. Field operations and claims is under me, all of our field offices, and the claims division, administrative division under Assistant Commissioner Lynn Glass, and our education and training division under Bill Young. We conduct annual training. The last couple of years it's been at St. Simon's, years prior to that at Choctaw Island, where we get all of our veterans benefits counselors, managers, claims counselors together to conduct our annual accreditation training, as well as bring in service officers from other service organizations. You see Gordon Mansfield, his picture there. The last couple of years he has been with us for that annual training event. We conduct the Governor's Annual Veterans Day Proclamation signing ceremony. It's generally held in late October, and a very important event to recognize Veterans Day in the state of Georgia. Of course, we conduct also annually a supermarket. Our supermarket this past year was in Columbus, Georgia. We had about 4,600 veterans to show up for the supermarket there at the Civic Center. Very, very successful event, and touched the lives of a lot of people in Columbus.
We had one in Griffin a couple of years ago.
Yes, sir. And we go at various different locations throughout the state, kind of spread them around to reach out to the veterans and to those that would not normally show up, and to have agencies. We had more agencies this time than ever before available. It basically one-stop shopping of whatever their need might be it Social Security or whatever educational college or other type of need that they might have. The Commissioner touched upon these priorities that we're working on currently within the state. I won't go through them again. Our motto in field operations and claims is to provide courteous and professional service to veterans and other claimants in a courteous and supportive work environment. And we strive very, very hard to do that. We provide free representation, have that capitalized, because anymore you'll see various groups and attorneys around that are charging for representation to help veterans with their claims. We provide free service.
Do you want to answer the question now, or you want to?
Sure. Anytime you have one, just go ahead and chime in.
Do you have a question?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. You don't have to go back to the screen. I just had a question, and I wanted to catch the Commissioner before he got down, but I didn't. You were talking about the commissary being at Dobbins Air Force Base. There's going to be a military enclave left in what is now Fort Gillem, once Fort Gillem leaves. That commissary is probably one of the busiest commissaries in the area. Have we tried, or have we spoke with anybody in regards to trying to keep that commissary there?
We fought very, very hard to do that, and the problem became that, it makes too much sense to turn into reality. You have a big, huge commissary there to just keep that one open. We were told that it had to be on a military installation, which would be the enclave, and there isn't a building on the enclave that is suitable. And why they didn't or couldn't build the enclave around the commissary, I guess that would be another story, but we fought that battle and lost. Both Commissioner and others, service organization, congressional delegation, were not able to convince them to go that route. So that's where the Dobbins option became another opportunity or another way of approaching it. The military leadership at Dobbins Air Reserve Base is behind, very supportive. In fact, has submitted the request, the application, which has been approved through Air Force channels, and is currently, as we are here today, before the Defense Commissary Operating Board at DECA, awaiting a decision. So we're hoping to get a favorable decision there, where at least we can have a commissary in this area, because we desperately need one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other?
Absolutely, and absolutely, because one of the reasons is I'm involved, if you will, Mr. Chair, I'm involved with the LRA there, and with the plans for the redevelopment of Fort Gillem as well, and we were able to negotiate some, for example, for the homeless. Rather than building a homeless center in the middle of Hood Avenue, they were able to put some money to expand the homeless cavalry refuge out there. But I sure do hate to lose that commissary in that area. I mean, people are just, from Macon all the way back, use that commissary. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Please, any other questions as we go along, just go ahead and ask them.
They have one at Fort Mac, don't they?
Well, they have it will close come by July the 15th of 2011. The one at Fort McPherson and Fort Gillem will both close, unfortunately. So that's why we need one, or pressing to get one at Dobbins. And the one in Athens, right. Right. Will also close. So we'll be high and dry without one unless we get them to approve it. I put the court analogy thing there because for a veteran, even though a veteran can file a claim. They can file online, or they can submit it themselves without representation, that it just doesn't make sense. It's too complicated. Too many things can go wrong in VA, even though they're not adversarial. It's non-adversarial, supposedly. It is still very confusing and complex, and it makes no more sense for a veteran to try to negotiate a claim with the VA by himself or herself than it does for a person to go to court without an attorney. We know that makes no sense at all, that you need representation by an attorney to go into the courtroom. The same is true in dealing with the VA, that veterans need to be represented. Our people are trained to represent and do a wonderful job of it. And we are accredited by all of the service organizations that you see listed there on the screen. So we represent a large number of organizations and receive training from several of them. The VFW and American Legion in particular have assisted greatly with our accreditation training with the VA. We have 47 field offices located strategically throughout the state to make it more accessible and easy for our veterans to be represented. And all of those stars that you see there is where we currently have offices that vary in size from a 3-person office to a 1-person office. We also have some itinerant service locations where from the permanent field offices, a representative will go to another location one day a week or a month to provide service for our veterans.
Yeah, these are very effective when you have questions about that. We recently had a fire, and the one in Griffin, I think you were up and operating the same day, next day or the same
right,
day.
It was amazing how quickly we were able to get another office set up and running. And
Mike Roby down there does a good job.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Thank you. And he and their staff were out at 2:30 in the morning in the cold in a foot of water, getting the records and everything out of that place too. Yeah. They did a wonderful job of that. Field offices are easily accessible for our veterans, handicapped veterans. Most of them are in a confidential setting, because the records and the types of cases that veterans and claimants discuss require confidentiality. We also have field offices located, as the Commissioner said, at all of our medical centers. We have one at Atlanta VA Medical Center, which also comes under our claims division, George Langford. Charlie Norwood VA Medical Center in Augusta, and at the Carl Vinson Medical Center in Dublin. And then we have our claims division that is headed by George Langford. It's the director of our claims division that's co-located with the Atlanta VA regional office. We, of course, are state. They are federal. We take the heat. People, veterans can think we are the VA and call us, and you people are this, and you people that, and you people that. But they, it's guilt by association. George and his staff work at the VA regional office in Atlanta and represent veterans and help do a tremendous job under a great deal of pressure there at the regional office. He has 9 claims counselors on his staff, 4 secretaries. One of them currently is part-time. They do everything that all of our other field offices do, plus they are where the buck stops. The buck stops with them. The field offices can pass it up to the claims staff at the regional office, but they're the ones that can interface directly with the VA federal personnel, can review the file folders. In addition to just filing claims and advising claims, they also represent veterans in hearings, the decision review officers, and the Board of Veterans Appeals travel board hearings two judges come down more and more frequently. They have such a backlog that they are coming, George, monthly, next week. And when they come, they continue doing everything they were doing, plus, oh, by the way, you might wind up doing 10 or 12 hearings per counselor during that week as well. So it's very, very difficult, very, very stressful. But they do a marvelous job.
Along with that, I, from time to time, are called on to help people get their disability through Social Security. And of course, since I'm not federal, I go to my congressman. But the bad news there is they're having budget problems too. And as I read where there was a 3-month delay on those, sometimes the person even passed away before they ever got it through. So it's a difficult problem all over right now as far as getting things done in a hurry.
Yes, sir, it is. But our folks do a marvelous job because things do get off track. The train does get derailed, and it may stay there for God knows how long unless somebody gets involved to get it back on track the way it ought to be. That's what our folks do day in, day out. I put this slide up here for a reason. Those of us who have been in the military understand the chain of command and understand the difference. The Army doesn't do things the same way that the Navy does, but the Army and the Navy are both under the Department of Defense. Well, the same is true with the VA, and people say, well, I gave it to the VA. Well, that's like saying I gave it to the Department of Defense. What branch of the service did you give it to? Most of what we deal with is with the Veterans Benefits Administration. And we deal with veterans all the time. Say, well, I gave it to the VA, but they may have given it to some medical clinic. And it's much difference between the VHA, Veterans Health Administration, and the VA, Veterans Benefits Administration, as there is almost between the United States and China. They think differently, operate differently, or in business for a different reason. One to treat folks and the other to process the benefits claims. So I emphasize that to be sure that veterans get the information. Generally speaking, it's related to a claim to the Veterans Benefits Administration. We deal with all of the VA federal entitlements, but the compensation, pension, and health care are the bulk of what we do. Probably Bill Young, our Director of Education, is more so in the educational part of it. I'm not going to make you counselors, but to understand, I think to have a basic understanding of VA disability compensation, that it is compensation is for a service-connected disability or for a service-connected death. Something happened in the service. Compensation is non-taxable income. It's paid for injuries or illnesses that were incurred in or aggravated during or active military service. And it must meet 3 criteria. It's like 3 pieces of a puzzle that have to be there, and we deal with the veterans all the time and say, well, they have it, and they, and I've been fighting for 10 years, and why don't I have it? Well, they don't have all 3 pieces of the puzzle. One is a current diagnosis of a chronic disease or disability. The event or illness or injury had to happen while they were in the service, and then there's a nexus or a link between the two. They say, well, I hurt my back in the service. Well, they hurt it, but it wasn't a chronic, it wasn't arthritis, it wasn't degenerative disc disease, they strained their back. It was an acute injury, painful, treated, that happened in the service, but they and they now have a chronic diagnosed condition, but they don't have that 3rd piece of the puzzle. They don't have a medical nexus. They need to have a doctor to say, Mr. Cook's degenerative disc disease of the back, in my professional opinion, is related to his injury, acute injury that had occurred while he was in the service, and give a rationale to support it. Then boom, you've got 3 pieces of the puzzle. 99 times out of 100 almost, that's what is missing, that medical nexus or link. Yes.
On that medical diagnosis, does that come with the stipulation on who's providing the diagnosis? Meaning, is it a private physician, or is that doctor? Does that doctor have to be
The
from?
doctor's the doctor. If it's a generally speaking, the case can never be too strong. So if they can get a specialist with a curriculum vitae a mile long, and teaching professor at Emory, to give the opinion, it's certainly a stronger opinion, but it does not have to. No, it does not have to be a VA medical examination.
Okay, thank you.
That's just to give you an idea of the rates. They vary from 10%, maybe for ringing in the ears or tinnitus, $123 to 100% rating for lung cancer, $2,673 for a single veteran. You have all of the rates. You get paid more once you get to the 30% rate for having a wife and kids. You have those rates in a separate handout. Yes.
Some people wonder about that sometime is why in 100%, 10 times 10%. It's probably because when you get up into the higher percents, you can't do much of anything. Right?
That's correct. We question a lot of the way they come up with the ratings. It's based on your ability to work for how they come up with it, but some of it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But that's the rates as they currently are.
We used to have a saying at Ford: "It don't make sense. It's company policy."
Yes. But most of the veterans organizations have fought to get them to raise the rates, particularly the lower than the 100%. Some of them, a veteran and maybe 80 or 90% disabled. Many of them are not able to work or to much gainful employment. Of course, you can get 100% based on unemployability, but that's another story. Then with the surviving spouse, the DIC monthly benefit of currently is $1,154, which is a good thing for those who are eligible. Those who a soldier killed in Iraq, and certainly a surviving spouse, or for a veteran whose death resulted from a service-related injury or disease like lung cancer for a Vietnam veteran, or if in some cases, even if it's a non-service-related injury like an auto accident, if the veteran was 100% permanently and totally disabled for a period of 10 years before his death, that's a statutory award. If he's 100% for 10 years, he can get killed in a car wreck or whatever happened, and his wife would be entitled to DIC. Or for our soldiers who, let's say, are seriously injured in combat now and come back and are rated 100%, and they die within 5 years, then their surviving spouse would be entitled to DIC. For a prisoner of war, the threshold is 1 year. Pension is a different category altogether. It's based on for the veteran, the current disability level. Maybe have a heart attack and not able to work anymore, and they have wartime service, then they're eligible for pension. It differs from compensation radically in two respects. One, the amount of the monthly payment is considerably less. You have the rates there in separate handouts, and it is income related. Unfortunately, it's more like a welfare kind of system. It assumes zero income. So for every dollar of income that you have from some other source, then that maximum amount of pension is reduced accordingly. So if your income level exceeds the amount of the pension, then even though you would be entitled to pension, the veteran is excluded because his income is too high. That can be reduced with medical expenses that I won't get into, but I just wanted to mention that because it's a very, very complicated system, and one that income from Social Security and other sources does count against the VA pension entitlement. But the rates vary for a veteran. I'll just mention real quickly is for the maximum amount's $985.83 a month with no income. For a widow surviving spouse, it's $661 a month maximum. So it's considerably less. Commissioner mentioned the part of this. I just wanted to put this slide up to show that in Georgia, that total expenditures that VA programs bring into the state of Georgia is over $2,363,000,000. And these are the figures that the Commissioner was talking about, just showing how much difference, but you can see there between Georgia and Illinois that we have 765,000 veterans roughly, and that we bring in a lot more, particularly with compensation and pension. If you look at that, at $1,227,000,000 compared to $739 million in Illinois. Why is that the case? I'd submit to you it's the case, number one, because of the leadership we have, number two, because of the training and the devotion of our service officers of what they do representing veterans with claims, that we're able to reach out to more veterans and get more veterans the benefits that they are entitled to and that they deserve.
Robert says something about the South, too. We furnish more soldiers, don't we?
I'm sorry?
That says something for the South. Don't we furnish more soldiers than any other area?
Well, that's true, too. Yes. I think it is significant that we do, especially in these troublesome times, economic times, to know that we are one of the few agencies that actually bring revenue into the state as a result of what we do. We also are involved in a lot of other activities on evenings and weekends, and our people are really getting more and more stressed out all the time. They're dedicated. Pre- and post-deployment briefings for National Guard and Reserve units. We're heavily involved with that through the armories and when they return in Fort Stewart and other places, that we have people there whenever they have those programs. Transition assistance briefings at all of our military installations, pre-retirement briefings, get invitations to nursing homes, assisted living facilities, churches, service organizations, civic organizations to brief on veterans' benefits. That takes extra time, evenings, weekends, our people are engaged in all the time. Getting more and more so because with the global war on terror continuing, the awareness level among the public is greater. So there are more and more requests that come. And every group that you go to and speak, then you wind up with 5 or 6 or 10 more clients and claims to file and more work to do. But that's what we're here for. Just in that vein, I just wanted to put up this slideshow that as a result of the legislature did this last year, we were authorized and approved. There were 6 more Veterans Benefits Counselor positions in the field, 2 Claims Counselor positions in the Claims Division, but then things got difficult and hiring freeze hit, and what looked wonderful came to a screeching halt, and we had the positions, but nobody in them yet. We're hoping to get some of that corrected this year, still yet, with the two claims counselors. Just briefly, you have in your packets all of the state veterans benefits, the free driver's license. Quite often, that is the drawing card. They'll come in. That's why I'm here today. Even retired from the military, retired from the Army. Found I was entitled to a free driver's license. Went to our office in Griffin. Learned about the other veterans benefits, filing a claim, and learned about what this department does. So the driver's license is the biggest drawing card probably. And then, of course, as you all know, with our different tags from the retired tags to the Purple Heart and disabled veterans and on and so forth. Business license, tax exemptions. Exemption from taxation is mainly for the 100% disabled, the homestead tax exemption, the veterans 100% permanent and total. Then they have that exemption. Park fee reduction for disabled veterans, hunting and fishing license for the 100% disabled again, and other benefits.
I don't know whether you, I took this gentleman over to meet the commissioner. He's a retired Green Beret Major, Mr. Griffin, and Major Griffin. And he brought up 200 veterans from Fort Benning, and I got it set up through the help of the people across the street who can't give away a driver's license, but they found somebody to fund it. And we brought up 200 veterans from Fort Benning and taught them to fly fish in the Chattahoochee River, and it was amazing to watch 3 or 4 veterans pulling those rainbow trout out over there, and it was catch and release. And the state had put a few thousand in the river there to be sure there's somebody to bite. So it was quite a thing, and I was the Army brought out a tent, and we ate barbecue in a tent and everything. It was very good day we spent out there.
Good program, very beneficial. Then in our administrative division, under our Assistant Commissioner for Administration, Lynn Glass, as Commissioner mentioned, nursing home care available in Augusta and Milledgeville, our 2 cemeteries, Glenville and in Milledgeville. Milledgeville, I think there are 2 skilled nursing care wings that we have available there, as well as an Alzheimer's unit. Wonderful care for our veterans. The only state in the United States that has free nursing home care for our veterans. For Veterans Nursing Home in Augusta, sometimes called the Blue Goose. Our cemetery in Milledgeville, very beautiful cemetery, ceremonial area where the dedication took place. Administrative building, same is true with Glenville. The only difference, I think, between the two, our field office is located in the one in Glenville, whereas in Milledgeville, our field office is in the nursing home building. The chapel, as the Commissioner pointed out, that's a picture of the interior of the chapel with stained glass windows pointing upward. Just mention this is with the chapel is tremendous because our federal cemeteries have just an open air committal shelter, which to me is a disgrace. I wished I could have been around when whoever came up with that decision, because there should have been a way, like in the military, to have a chapel where you can make it generic and tailor it to the faith group of whoever comes in to have a committal service, but they just have an open air shelter, and we are fortunate that we have a chapel that can bring dignity to that last ceremony for a loved one. Brilliant to play music. Amazing Grace gets played a lot. Columbarium for the cremated remains. They're almost twin cemeteries now. The one in Glenville was dedicated.
Didn't we change the law at one time? We had a problem because you had to be living in Georgia. Did we change that so that you let's go over that a little bit? We changed it a year or two ago.
Right, to make it
so that you I think if you were
It's a lot more latitude now for that. Then our Education and Training Division under Bill Young, the state approving agency. Like with the nursing home, we're the only state in the United States that has free nursing home care. We are number one in the United States with our state approval agency and the Education and Training Division and the programs that we have. Number one state in the United States with what we do. With the on-the-job training programs and the apprenticeship training programs. On-the-job training is through our colleges and universities, right? And the apprenticeship training through trade schools and that sort of thing. Numbers, we have, I don't have the numbers handy, but we have throughout the state, just most every college, university, trade school that's out there, then Bill Young and his staff have been with them and got them approved for these programs. It's tremendous benefit for our veterans. Put in the Georgia Military Scholarship, the Hero Scholarship. I think you have a handout in the packet about them, and these are opportunities for our high school graduates to seek an avenue of getting educated within the state of Georgia. It involves some military obligation for the military college scholarship through the Guard, National Guard obligation, or active duty ROTC commissions. But it's a great opportunity and requires recommendation from a representative.
Yeah, I participated in that quite a bit. We have a very good ROTC program at Griffin High School. It's a great program there in North Georgia College. A lot of young people. Any questions for the gentleman?
I believe at Clayton State University, we've just started an ROTC program at Clayton State University as well.
Yeah, that's good. I attended one down at in Henry County. They got a Navy one down there.
We appreciate your support, and what would say to you, anytime you have a constituent that has a problem or an issue with the VA, then please get in touch with me. We'll do our best to get it straightened out. Not everything is fixable. It's within the bounds of the law and what we can do, but if we can do it, we will get it done and find a way to help and assist, get things back on track, because VA is heavily backlogged, and it's a terrible problem that many of our veterans face. And the more critical the need is, the more you need to get in touch with us to help, because in rough economic times like what we have, many of them are facing foreclosure and are having an extremely difficult time, and they may be fighting cancer and other serious illnesses as well. So be glad to do what we can to help you.
Well, I really appreciate you doing this, and we're going to give these packets to the members that are not here, and I'm going to urge them to go over this. And I wish they'd all been here, but the way it goes up here, you can never get 100%. But I'm reminded of what the old first sergeant said when I was in the Army. He said, one in the latrine, one in the canteen, one I ain't never seen, all present accounted for. But we'll get the word around and try to get them to ask questions and everything about it. But I really appreciate it. I'd have to say that your organization, I think, does a better job of keeping us informed than anybody I deal with up here, and it's done for a good cause. I know there was 5 of us and 5 boys in my family that are all in the military, and it's nothing that I wouldn't do for a military member or veteran, because I think they all deserved it, and I don't think that the world owes me a living because I served in the war, but I think that we all deserve some kind of help when we need it. And so I'll ask the question, and I don't want to beat it to death, I guess, but the commission and I had quite a bit to do with this thing, and I just want to ask the question: how many of y'all had questions about after the article came out in the Macon Telegraphs and said they threw the veterans out in the street? Everybody get questions? If the commissioner wouldn't mind, if you'd tell us a little bit, just briefly, what happened from the time that I had Senator John Douglas, who does the same job over there in the Senate, and he and I worked very closely together on most things. And he spent about 20 years in the Army, so he has a different viewpoint from what I do. I'm a short term, just in the war. But the commission came over to my office with Senator Douglas, and we thought we was all in agreement, and I still think we did the best thing, and the commissioner was happy with what it turned out, because it wasn't they threw him out in the street. I just wanted him to emphasize a little bit how long he did work on this, and the last thing he called me on was that everybody had been taken care of. And it was a domiciliary, and it was not a nursing home. The fact is, I thought about putting into the commission and see if I could get a spot down there, particularly now that my wife's died. But because it wasn't a nursing situation.
Thank you very much. I think it was very well explained. My concern back, and I spoke to the chairman about that, was not necessarily what you were doing, but getting word back to us so that we could immediately go back to news media, radio, and newspapers. And the only thing I would recommend in the future is when something like this comes up, it's going to come up again because we've got some real challenges as far as budgetary situation, that you contact the members of this committee, and we will do some PR for you, and we will help you, but we need to have the information. Yes. Yeah, I was there.
Maybe you didn't get the word. What happened is when the commissioner and Senator John Doug was in my office, right after that, I wrote to all members of this committee, and I said, this is the situation, and this is what the commissioner said, and I agree with it, and John Douglas agreed with it, Senator Douglas agreed with it at that time, and then later on, he changed his mind. He wrote a letter to the governor and said that he changed his mind on it. I wrote a letter to the governor and said I'm sticking with the commission on it because I think it's the right thing to do. So that I didn't know whether you got my communication.
No, we did not get the follow-up letter. We all got the letter that said, if I'm not mistaken, that said that there was an agreement that everybody would be taken care of, and this is how it was going to be.
Follow up about the senator and so on.
That's right.
Well, what happened? I was glad also at the meeting in Milledgeville. The VFW and the American Legion agreed with what we were doing. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry we missed that point, but I mean, yeah. Well, we'll try to watch that more closely. Any other questions, John? I screwed up here and missed the most important people up here. These two ladies, tell your name and what you do, and because they did a great job of putting this meeting together today.
I'm Jennifer Blackley, and I'm the committee aide.
These people that we try to bring into government and teach them about government, and maybe they'll go out and tell all the good things we do up here sometime. Yeah. Commissioner, we going to do a little housekeeping things here. I mean, y'all can leave, or you can whatever. I mean, it's nothing else that we're going to do. If there's any other questions or no other questions for the we did appreciate y'all coming. We're going to have a meeting Monday and take up bills, and at that time, any bills that's on the calendar at that time, we'll do that. Everybody got a copy of the rules, and I don't think we made the changes, did we? Yeah. Do I have a motion that we adopt these for the next 2 years? All right. It's second. All in favor? Unopposed? All right. We adopted the rules as we got some we got 10 members this year, which is good. We appreciate the new members here. And let's see, did other new member come? Who was it? I thought there was 2 new ones. Oh yeah, Matt Ramsey. He's a new member, and I don't know, he maybe had something else he had to do today. But well, I want to talk about we got a old one came up again, and as I say, we're not going to vote on it today or anything, but I wanted to get y'all's feelings on it. Mr. Keene has brought up House Bill 3, and we're going to take this up Monday because I've had a couple calls from veterans that said they want a hearing on it. But I want to, for those of you that were not here, I want to give you a background on it. That what this calls for is closing schools on Veterans Day. It went back originally, and it passed the House. And the bill was House Bill 1286 in March 6, 08, passed the House 150-0, and tabled in the Senate on 4/2/08. So then the next year, I got to thinking about it, and we talked about it and decided that the school children needed to stay in school, and most of them wouldn't think about Veterans Day. And I told them the example that we used down in my area for about 4 counties around there. We got what's called the Voice of Veterans, and we go out to the schools and discuss patriotism, and some of the local business people give money for buying a little American flag, and we give it to the elementary school kids. And I've got a letter from the local superintendent who thinks it's a great idea. I got a letter from, we told, part of this was the urgent resolution, not a bill that time, it was the urgent resolution urging Kathy Cox to urge all the schools to do this. The other day I read where some states are doing away with some holidays because of the budget crunch, trying to back off on some of them. And of course we got a bunch of them, as you know. We don't celebrate them when they're supposed to. We celebrate Lee's birthday, the day of Thanksgiving, I think, and one other one that's around Christmas time. So, but I'm strong feeling on this that the last thing we need is to send the kids home again, and they're not going to think about Veterans Day, I don't think. I've got one. I think I got a letter here from. Well, I got one from a school. This is Jim Stokes, Legislative Liaison, Georgia Association of Secondary School Principals. And yeah, okay, thank you, sir. You like to speak on that, sir? Yes, sir. And this was received by me January 28th. Sir, just before you leave, yeah, how you feel on this? Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, thank you, sir.
My name is Jimmy Stokes. I'm a retired high school principal. I'm not a veteran, but my father and 2 of my brothers fought in World War II, and one of my brothers fought in Korea. And my son-in-law is being deployed to Afghanistan as we speak. So patriotism runs very, very deep with us. The Georgia Association of Secondary School Principals genuinely and earnestly supports Veterans Day. I did a survey of our board of directors, and over 75% of our schools do a Veterans Day program at their school. And folks, we very much take Veterans Day seriously, but we ask that you not make it a holiday, because right now we have over 75% of our high school children in the state that are participating in a quality Veterans Day program and recognition. If we have a holiday, it'll be less than 10%. We really want our kids to continue that. I live in Madison, Georgia. Not only do we have a big celebration at the high school, our high school leads the community celebration. We have a thing at the courthouse at 11 o'clock on Veterans Day, and the high school chorus comes, the high school band comes, our ROTC performs, and we want to continue that. Please give us the opportunity to continue to celebrate Veterans Day in the schools.
The elementary school down in Henry County, southern part of the county there, Luella, has kind of adopted me. They've lined me up the rest of my days up here to be on there on Veterans Day, and the kids sat down and they showed a little movie about me. I'm on the National Museum of Patriotism up in North Atlanta, and they made a little movie about my war service, and I showed that and talked, and then the lady that came after me was the one that cut the orders for Eisenhower to invade Europe, and she's active in the VFW here, and it was a great program, and part of that was thrown into that. It was in the library, so they turned it into part of their library presentation. Nationally, they won a $10,000 prize for one of the best library in the country, and so when they had that, and they cut it out at 11 o'clock, it wasn't a sound in that whole school, and it was just awesome. And that's the kind of thing it is. Should I read this? You pretty well covered everything is in it.
Yes, sir. I think I covered that. You're welcome to share that with the members.
Yeah, I'll
of the
give
committee.
a copy to you if anybody wants. give to the members here, and I want to cover it with the others. But I want to see, just what what's your feeling on it?
I think we do a lot more good, as the gentleman stated, by having a captive audience of our children and teaching them about patriotism and veterans, rather than cutting them out, sending them home, causing problems for the parents, transportation, and all that kind of stuff. I think if we really want to get them to understand what sacrifices are made for this country by our veterans, that we should do it by education, not lack of education.
That's what we did with this before. We urged this superintendent of schools of Georgia to do just that through this urgent resolution. And so somebody suggested maybe we should go back and renew that and tell them again, and we wouldn't need legislation to do that because we certainly have the prerogative of doing that. Okay.
I agree with that.
How do you feel on it, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With the subtle reality of where Georgia is education-wise and getting our children to learn, the last thing we need is for them to be out of the classroom an additional day. Those are my sentiments.
Those are my feelings, too. I appreciate you coming so much. And,
Thank you, sir.
I hated that we took so long for the meeting here, but I thought it was so important to educate all of us on how to help veterans, and I thought that was a good program we had there. And I'm just
That's very understandable. I want you to understand that the high school principals in this state are unequivocally supportive of Veterans Day. We want to be able to do Veterans Day for our children.
Well, I just met again with our retiring superintendent of schools, and he's very much continued to be very much for this kind of stuff. And I'd say if the average citizen could sit through what I do down at this elementary school, I mean, you would just give chills up and down just fine.
Every high school in Henry County, there are 8 high schools in Henry County. Every one of them have Veterans Day.
We do in my district also.
Yeah, I went to.
High school principal for 15 years. We have Veterans Day program for 10 years.
Well, it was so important to me to go to the new Navy ROTC at Luella High School that I stood up to the governor at his meeting over in Athens that day. I was supposed to wait and hear his speech, but I thought this was more important. Well, I appreciate it so much, and you just continue to help get the word around to that, and we'll follow that. Is there anything else that you have? We'll try to. Will y'all help me kind of educate the rest of them, and I'll take a poll of it. And what we'll do, I'll tell you what my majority leader. Of course, I don't like to sass him if I can help it, but he serves this up because he can't take the pressure from the veterans in St. Simon's Island, I guess. And I haven't fought in a war. I guess that I know I do what I can for veterans, but at the same time, I'm not scared to talk to one and tell them the facts of life, that this is the best program. And so he very understanding. He said, you do what you got to do. So we'll take it up Monday if we can get our meeting set up for Monday and go from there. And it won't be necessary for you to come back unless you want to. But okay, thank you, sir. Is there anything else that needs to come up before the committee? Do we have a motion to adjourn? Thank you. We are adjourned.